Make sure we're not infinite here, but turn this up. And then you should be full screen with the slide deck now. Is that what you guys see as well?
Yeah, solid.
Perfect. So this originally started back in the day. We built models in the cloud with Google with what was Google's Dialogflow, which is basically a kind of domain-specific bot for training. I think this started in 2019, maybe, when we first started noodling with this one. But these Dialogflow models we were putting towards the Muses. And we got down fairly deep into it. We built an architecture. I showed some of that earlier on in these earlier weeks. And so the idea was to take this concept of digitizing the Muse, right, as an agent to help people understand story and narrative design and things like that. And really it's framed in and around, and this is kind of what I dove into last week a bit more. We have an internal in-house tool called Story Atlas. It's more than this internal tool that we have. It's really a processes that happens in like writers' rooms and that kind of stuff in the entertainment industry. Is these writing exercises so that you can get to story bibles and these large narrative pieces. And so building out, taking what was the dialogue flow with the Muse, with Calliope models, and now taking those into ChatGPT realm, and specifically for this instance today, we'll be using Poe. But we'll be using a number of different AI today, because today is actually, we're going to get into it. I'm going to share the tools, and we're going to do some exploration of how we can use them and that kind of stuff, and get into some of the techniques. We can talk about recipes and some of that kind of stuff. And then next week is the final week. Talk a bit about, I was going to dive a little bit more into the 3D piece. I think what I'm going to do is focus a little bit more on the ethics piece, and potentially give you some decisions on which of the two kind of directions we might go with it. But I'm still working on that, so I'll get back to you on that one. So really this whole idea is, how can we help to evoke the Muse? How do we get somebody who's stuck, trying to write an episode of, Sanford and Son 2024 or whatever we're trying to write these days, to get the Muse to help us out, right? And to get what is a difficult task, and especially has been a very difficult task with the last year, with the writers and everyone being on strike. So this is why I really want to dive into the ethics and some of those components next week in a really major way, and explain. So when I say like recipes and things like this, I'm going to start to quantify this week and say, I think one of the ways that we help to prevent the stealing and the unethical use is I don't say the words Superman. I don't call for Godzilla. I don't ask for what is already, we know, in owned intellectual property. I use these tools in a way that is respectful of other artists. And then maybe I get lucky enough to work with E.G. Tsuburaya. Oh my God, I did. It was amazing. Anyway, with the Tsuburaya, I didn't get to work with the man himself, but the company, you get to work with your idols. And it happened. I just was blessed to have that happen. So the ability to, take these tools and feed them to the people, but you kind of have to, you have to try your recipes on yourself, and you got to know what's in them, right? It's that organic materials and those kinds of things that we think about, the healthy diet for our narrative, right? That should be the same thing. We talked about the care and feeding of the children as a corollary last week with the story. So I think we're really at this idea of this kind of collective journey intelligence, really, because I do think we're in this evolutionary stage as well. If you look at narrative design, building this collaborative agents together to kind of work with what is this next generation hero's journey, what it's being called kind of collective journey. if you follow really smart people like Henry Jenkins or Jeff Gomez, or people that are really spend a lot of time and energy. Jenkins is at USC, or academics and such. There's a ton of great people in the space, but people that think really long and hard about narrative design and these kinds of large-scale stories and how this works. And we talked as well earlier in the sessions about how clinically we put people in MRIs and told them stories the wrong way, and it breaks, right? You realize it, right? We're hardwired for a good story, and if you break the frameworks, then people lose interest or don't pay attention. Oh, what is going on? Oh Lord, something is going on with fonts. And I apologize. So nobody can see that because I can't see it. Sorry about this, guys. Just take me a second. Guys, something has gone funky with the fonts. All right, there. So let me make sure as well over here. I can't do that. This is the one flaw with Discord, is the channels to be able to assure that everything is flowing good. So I can't see everything. Let's see. All right. Get you back where you need to be. All right. Hopefully we're all good. So
I can see properly. That's
perfect. So this is the sorry about the font issue. This is showing us the model for how we're using to train the Muse, and this will be again part of next week and going forward really in Poe with what are these Muse agents, right, going forward, and how honestly I've been thinking more about this, and I don't want to get too lost in this right now, but this might be a really interesting kind of communal project to expand out if others have an interest in that, but I don't want to make any assumptions. But looking at what are the kind of components that you train on. And so what we have is we've got an ebook. Basically, it's about 120 or something like that of text that is liquid story, and some other things. And I do think there are some other components that I want to add. But the idea at a really high level is the components that help us to understand what the liquid story and the framework pieces for transmedia and some of these kind of things of how stories and like I said, these narrative design pieces, the flows, the narrative flows, and some of those kinds of training mechanics. And then what we'll use as well for us would be the Leviathan method and those kinds of processes that we can train the AI on, using Poe as an underlying engine, with ChatGPT-4 being that primary driver agent. And this will make a bit more sense when we get into the actual application itself a bit, and I think the building of the agent will probably occur next week, because I just want to get into the front part of these and explain, like I was going through last week, we got to do the pre-production, the production, and then the post, right? The post would be how we train and finish out these agents. I want to talk about the process of how we get there, the character design, and some of this kind of stuff. And I don't know if anyone, I know a few people did, I saw some responses, but I think the idea today is, if we can, is to have some collaboration and to get some prompting going, and to really kind of stop and take some questions and dive a little deeper here earlier on with getting into the tools themselves. So the other side of this is looking at how you model for the Muses for art, right? So the graphic arts specifically here. So looking at the prompt engineering. And so what I've laid out here is what we did in a sense with, or I don't want to say in a sense, this is what we did between Chris and I and I think some others in talking about what is the style. So this is the style up here with this raw was a specific style for Midjourney that we were using to maintain a consistency for what was the header art that was used in the email blast and some of the social and some of those things. And then some of the other, the presentation materials and the Muses that you've seen, basically following a kind of prompt, this frame. And by frame, I mean there is some sort of a specification that you put. Basically the recipe that you're framing, right, around the prompt that's going in. And then we're finalizing out with a style and a ratio. And if you haven't seen a Midjourney prompt or anything like that, we're going to do that today as well. We're going to get into the flags and what all that means and some of that stuff. I don't want to go too far and too fast, which is why I'm going to try to slowly walk into this and want to kind of walk back through at a high level. And again, going back to the writing, again, it starts with a person. You get a series of these writing AIs, and we'll put those together to put together what is the scripting pieces, and then with those scripts and those descriptions, and collectively with that, we'll generate some art. And I think Clio was the one we were looking at chasing as a collaborative. So. Again, I think it's getting back to this point of the idea here is there is an art and a craft and even a little bit of magic here where you can kind of, something just kind of breaks or works. It reminds me a lot of back in the days when I did VFX more than I do these days, or was doing that more full time. Just those accidental things that come across, and then it really plays well in a shot or a VFX, something like that. Happy accidents, basically. So again, here's the kind of Midjourney. We used Midjourney 5.2, version 5.2, for these images. And in fact, this style will not work with 6, just so you know. And none of the styles will. The betas usually they strip them raw of a lot of the flags. The dash you'll see, and in fact there should only be 2 dashes here. Sorry, that's a mistake, and I don't need to go fix it right now. I'm not that nutty. And then Dolly. So Dolly is, I use Dolly through Poe. Dolly is accessed through a lot of different things and utilized in a number of different AI tools, right? So you'll see Dolly a lot. It's the one that, especially with the version 3, seems a little more literal and less realistic. Maybe I don't know. I fought with how to make that simple and straightforward, but to me, in a nutshell, right? If you're looking for photo and really want to go high end, Midjourney really does a really nice job with some of that. There's still some issues, I would say, but Dolly is much more will give you what you tell it, right? It's much more literal spit back than with Midjourney. You really are. It really is about crafting recipes. And especially historically, and I don't want to get into the histories of any of that, but I will go a little into the history because I have talked about this a few times, which is basically the AI comedy joke machine that I built in the past. And this is the video of said takeover of the tweeters, except the X's now, I should say. But basically, with this one was a very much different thing than we're doing here because these were bespoke models from Huggy Face. They're running on Python there's a lot more code and things involved in that to do that build to make this little AI bot that we called Aloria at one point, or she called herself. And created what was this tinfoil think, and it really did it trained a lot. It showed a lot in how to mix the blending because we used Midjourney, I think a little bit of Dolly, but I think it's almost all Midjourney on the imagery for this ridiculous kind of joke machine where I tried to keep the cleanliness and the the biases as much as possible out to some extent, and pickle's a more funny word than whatever, street broom or whatever, I don't know. But occasionally we'd do a little minor edit of words, or just edit something else because it was inappropriate. But for the most part, it was hilarious, some of the stuff that it came up with. So I'll have this whole thing is live, and I can you can check it out. The whole thing lasts about 6 minutes, so I don't think we need to see all of them. But I do like the Amish taking control of the shadow government. So I'm gonna dive in again. This is using that style. This was literally evoked just a few days ago, where and I gave it a frame, and I should have put the prompt. I'm being silly. But it was something like the muse painting self-portrait with her, of her and her sisters. Something, a studio expressing art. Gave us a little bit of flower language, kind of, but pretty simple. And then gave it a style. And this was one of the pieces that spat out that I liked. And then the other one on the other side here is kind of same. I think that one definitely was on the the Muses are teaching the robots kind of theme. There's a couple of iterations of that I've run through that have given me some kind of cute robots and these kind of classical Greek style caricatures of the Muses. So I did want to touch on some of the interface stuff and the fact that we're on Discord. I know some folks are new to Discord. Discord is kind of eating the world to some extent when it comes to, it's already eaten the Gen Zs. I've got an 18-year-old who never leaves Discord. But it's kind of swallowing the rest of the world with media and things like that, and especially in AI, because you can tie these bots directly into your server, as you've seen here, Chris, if you've checked the AI channel out, right? There's some interesting stuff that gets created. And this is a screenshot of, the Muses, right? The stuff I was talking about a minute ago that I was evoking. And I've got a server that I basically have hooked up and run my mid-journey through. And then I break things down by kind of partnerships. I've got something going on that nobody should look at that I didn't even realize was on there. Not even thinking about this, but that's all right. And some other intellectual property pieces that we're working with, or doing things for. So we're going to jump in here in just a second, but I'm going to do it through Discord, so I'm not quite sure how this is going to work. And in fact, I might have to just start with the Poe. I think I'm going to start with Poe because I think jumping between... I think we can do it because I'll be full screen and it'll be fine. I'm overthinking things. And then Poe. So Poe knows. Not quite as much as Bo. And yes, I am a Raiders fan. Poe it's pretty interesting. I really like it, and this is why we're using this as a really kind of a general, what I thought was a much more user approachable way to build a bot. So you can see right in the very beginning at the top of the interface for Poe, there's explore and create a bot. So they really are trying to encourage. There's, the amount of energy and we're early days. This is still the kind of wild west of AI stores and that kind of stuff. There's some grumblings on their own Discord server, but I think it's just growing pains for the most part. We'll see, but I think it's a good exercise nonetheless. And to be able to have this kind of centralized dashboard interface, like I said, we spend a lot of money on tools, so this is probably a little on the steep side for a lot of folks to go out and go, oh yeah, let me just bite down on $200 for the year. But in all honesty, if you look at it and once you kind of learn what this tool can do for you, that $199 makes up for itself in about the first hour or two that you use it, because you're able to process and get things, make that slide deck, write up that presentation, email, the LinkedIn post, right? There's all sorts of, pretty amazing what's already started to occur, and we're yet in our infancy. So also want to kind of get back into recipes a little bit here and touch on this before we dive back into this, or we dive in. I know I said dive in, and then we're slowly working our way in. But it's really about utilizing these kind of descriptive languages. And with Poe, it's kind of going across the tool bag. So as we do this, you know, there's really kind of the sky's the limit, because to be honest, what I'm hearing, and honestly, I shouldn't talk. I won't. But there's things happening in La La Land, let's just say, that where at the true kind of big scale production, you're going to have these kind of control nets and these other very specific things that, you know, we can touch on and we'll get to, but on the backside, I want to talk about the simpler tools. But these large scale AI tools that are specifically trained and styled to a production. And I think that's where a lot of stuff is headed in Hollywood, from the conversations I've been hearing and some of the things that I'll just say, if everyone can cross all their fingers and toes and this actually happens, that would be amazing. There might be a movie. I love this quote. This is the other secret that real artists know and wannabe writers don't. When we sit down each day and do our work, power concentrates around us. The muse takes note of our dedication. She approves. We have earned favor in her sight. When we sit down and work, we become like a magnetized rod that attracts iron filings. Ideas come, insights. So good. So I just really want as well for people to think about and be inspired, and think about the fact that there's a lot of fear. And I gotta say, probably there's a lot of deservedly so fear around artificial intelligence. But there's also a lot of inspiration, and I want us to really lean into that fact today. So, here we go. Now we're gonna jump in. All right, mid-journey and recipes. Yeah, I said dive in, and then we get lost in the malaise. I'm gonna bring this back around. Okay, so
if you want your children to be smart, tell them stories. If you want them to be brilliant, tell them more stories.